innovation only works when it truly supports patients and care teams, and that's why the Innovation Smart Room is so important.
We have leaders every day coming and saying, this is a huge problem for us. Can you help us solve? I want to be the first to test it. Kind of the pick-me attitude, which is really exciting, I think, for all of us to embrace the learning that occurs. But once the learning occurs, then how do we deploy it so that it's impactful for the rest of the ministry?
That's Becky Buchen, Senior Vice President, Innovation and Transformation for OSF HealthCare. And I'm Shelli Dankoff, your host for OSF HealthCare Accelerated. We appreciate you tuning in and remind you to be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. The scope of healthcare delivery in the future is changing. That's a given. There will be shifts in care delivery, more patients with an aging population, and with that comes different care delivery models and more technology. And the biggest bottom line, the patient will be the ultimate consumer. OSF HealthCare wants to be at the forefront of that transformation in care, and that is why we have been working on the Innovation Smart Room that's helping us shape safer, smarter patient care through simulation. Joining us to talk about this and so much more are Becky Buchen, Senior Vice President, Innovation and Transformation for OSF HealthCare, and Kelly George, Vice President, Performance Improvement for OSF HealthCare. Thank you both for being with us. This should be a very fascinating conversation. Becky, let's start with you and start with, what is a simulation smart room?
Yeah, it's a great question, Shelli. We're so fortunate at OSF, even as we look across the nation, to be able to have a simulation innovation center. Really started about 15 years ago, but I think as technology has continued to advance, we really recognized very quickly we wanted to have a space specifically that we could really explore what was coming into healthcare, because we knew it was coming fast. The technology was coming fast. And in this case, it's technology that would be placed in the inpatient rooms to help support the patients as well as the clinicians. But there's so many opportunities as we look to the future from a true smart room perspective. We're exploring things, exploration really being the key word there. We're exploring things that might reduce the load of some of the pathogens within, a given room. We're looking at, potentially other things that could be impactful, not just within the inpatient setting, but from a smart room perspective, we really wanted to take the time to explore and then determine what was working, what was not working, be able to quickly get to a decision around those things that were really going to have impact for our clinicians, and really hope that we then could move that into the simulation space. So keep in mind, we have 2 floors of simulation that have a lot of varying kind of areas, if you will. So we have an OR room, we have an inpatient kind of standard room that we simulate things in, we have an ICU room, we have ambulatory settings, but we would like to be able to, again, use this smart room, explore those things that are working, and then really think about how do we leverage simulation for the ongoing education that would need to occur within our ministry to help continue to expand that technology, the testing, what's working, and how we ensure that people are really kind of trained up as those things continue to be deployed across our ministry.
As I hear you discuss this is not a cookie cutter solution. That's the beauty of it. It's not like you go, okay, we need a smart room. Boom, there it is. Right. It is, the word exploration is key here, isn't it?
Yes, it is key, and really required, again, a lot from the ecosystem within innovation, certainly our IT partners, making sure that we had the right framing, the right network specific to this, looking at process, what was workflow going to look like, bringing our clinicians in, which is most important to really get feedback as we explore, and really allows us that safe space to de-risk those things that we're going to be potentially then piloting or expanding across the ministry.
It's interesting when I hear you talk about working on it for about 15 years. Yeah, when you think back, it has been that long. The pandemic kind of put the foot in the middle of the back, didn't it? And said, here you go. You've been dancing around the edges. Boop, there's the cliff. Go, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It really expedited. Again, a lot of testing, a lot of different point solutions had occurred at that time. That were impactful in pockets, But really, from a pandemic perspective, we're able to, what I would say, kind of stitch all of those things together to really impact not only the patient journey, the clinician journey, and how we provide care, especially as we think about the new models of care that have been deployed. And that truly is because we have the right ecosystem from an innovation perspective in place to be able to test and explore to understand what's going to work and what's going to be impactful.
So now that we have the what it is, so the whys, Kelly, I need to bring you in and talk about, from this, process and performance improvement perspective. How does your world loop into everything else going on in the big picture world to make all of this work?
Yeah, so as we think about anytime we're bringing in a new technology, we typically leverage our discovery, validation, pilot process. So we're working with the company, we're looking at their technology, we're looking at the problems that we're trying to solve, and then what is going to be that right solution that we can bring in, and who is it going to impact? Do we have a business case? Kind of what does that look like? Once we really see that we have engagement from our clinicians, from our business, and have the support to move that forward, we would then take that forward to a pilot. And when you think about a pilot, before we really get that on the inpatient unit, then this smart room really gives us the opportunity to get in there and do some of that testing. So getting the technology in the space that really allows us to bring in the clinicians, right? To bring in the care teams, to bring in those frontline mission partners so they can see it, touch it, feel it before it ever hits the real patient care space. And then it also gives us the opportunity to look at those workflows, right? Because you can have the best technology, but if we don't have those workflows that fit for the mission partners, that fit for our patients and that experience, you're not going to have a great experience and product, right? So we can then get the technology, bring those team members in, and then spend some time in that space really thinking about, okay, what is this workflow going to look like? How does the technology going to be laid out? How is it going to interact with the other things in the space? And do some of that kind of front-end testing, right, before it even goes to formal simulation or gets into the patient care space. So what that should allow us to do then is also provide a better experience for our mission partners and our patients as we bring new technology forward and to make that more seamless.
The interesting thing I think people sometimes fail to remember is part of simulation and innovation is failure. You want to figure out what's going to go. I mean, part of your day is going, okay, let's make this not work. Is that kind of fun and weird all at the same time?
Well, because it really gives us that opportunity. Like, okay, we laid this all out on paper. We brought people in. We looked at the process. And now let's actually test it and walk through it. Yeah. And that's where we've had, really some learning, right? To say, okay, that didn't exactly flow as we had planned, or we didn't think about that downstream impact. And that's why having those frontline mission partners in that space, seeing the technology, talking through the process, walking through some of that really allows us then to have that bigger picture and then really understand those potential failure points. And can we mitigate those, or do we need to totally start over and do something different?
It's a safe space, right? I mean, clearly, to Kelly's point, really allowing us to test those things. And if you think about, us, humans, we don't like change, right? But it allows us to really test for what are the things that are going to be significant impact to change? What are things that clinicians are really going to like? And be sure that we're highlighting that. So again, it's a really safe space to be able to explore those, various components of technology being deployed.
Yeah, because how often and it doesn't matter what area you're talking about, you write it down, you go, this looks great on paper, and then you go, yep, that didn't work at all like we thought it would.
Right.
But to your point, that's okay.
Yes.
Better now than when it's in a patient room.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay, so tell us about some of the exact technology that you're looking at in the company that you're working with. What kinds of things from the coolness factor are you looking at in this space?
So from HealthCare, right, that really allows us to think about how we can reduce falls for our patients, as well as thinking about how are we looking at potential pressure ulcer reduction and things of that nature, right? And those are just some of the things. In addition to, how are we utilizing those whiteboards and looking at that from a technology perspective. So thinking about getting away from kind of the very old kind of on-the-wall whiteboards and really making that very interactive. We can show that the patient is in isolation and we can see who the care team is. And a lot of those different things that are really going to create a better experience for both our patients as well as our mission partners as well. So really excited. We've started to kind of lay all of that out in the smart room, engage mission partners in that. So really excited to see how that's going to come together.
Is there any such thing as too wild and crazy of an idea when you're at this stage of trying things out and learning? I mean, I'm sure people could walk in with the craziest ideas. Is anything off the table, or is it like anything goes?
I would say, like, certainly we encourage new ideas to be brought in. To your point, sometimes it could be a money factor, could be a resource factor. But yes, we really try to leverage and build the culture of bring forward your ideas. I would say not specifically the smart room, but another kind of case study, if you will, leveraging the simulation space is when we deployed the hospital at home. And it was really interesting to get feedback from the patients specifically, like, no, don't put the technology there because that's, directly in my living space. Put it, position it somewhere else. So even the most minor things have significant impact for our patients. So again, another, not specific to the smart room, but certainly another way that we've leveraged the exploration that really can occur within the innovation and simulation space.
Is that the key to simulation, that it truly is, practicing sounds like too simple of a word, but if you're coming into my home and placing equipment, I wouldn't have thought of that, and I'm guessing some of our providers haven't either, but to walk in the other person's shoes, if you will, is that another key component to simulation?
I would say yes, for sure it is. And I think it's interesting. So specific to simulation, it really is setting up very specific real world scenarios. And we leverage standardized participants, so it feels very real. And then we're able to then do debriefs after. What would you change? What did you learn? And I think there are so many ahas that happen, especially during the debrief. And oftentimes, our clinicians are coming in saying, simulation seems scary. Someone's going to be kind of watching me as I do my work or as I interact with the high fidelity mannequins based on the simulation. But I think what happens is once they become comfortable and they're in a space that they're accustomed to, they're with their colleagues, then they can say, oh, I didn't realize, maybe I can change this for the next time. So really the learning that occurs. But again, it's from a smart room perspective, it is really thinking about how are we exploring, how are we de-risking, what are some of the things that we need to address, and then really taking it into that scenario or simulation space.
And it isn't just about the technology sometimes. Sometimes it's about the conversations that you're having that take place around it. Do you find maybe some of that soft part sometimes is harder for some of the people going through it? Do you see that in the simulation space, that it's not necessarily the touching and the technology, but those other soft components that come in that perhaps are more challenging?
And when I think about that, I think about the change management component as well as we think about simulation, So whether that's through formal simulation, whether that's through testing in the smart room, getting mission partners, getting clinicians in there, getting them the ability to kind of touch, see, feel, and understand what may be coming is really part of that change management process, right? And if they have the opportunity to then weigh in or say, hey, have we thought about doing it this way? The process really needs to look this way. They start to really gain some of that ownership, right? And I think from a change management perspective, that can be really important, as well as then allows them to be a liaison, right? And a support and a champion then for maybe others on their team who are a little bit more hesitant as we think about implementing something new, deploying something brand new. So I think we can't underestimate kind of the change management component as well as we think about any of these new technologies and new models and new things coming at us.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit down the road. This is one specific, the smart room, and we have a very specific case study for that. But where would the two of you, if you could look into that crystal ball and look down the road, are the possibilities endless with this technology and what we could potentially do with it down the road?
I think it is. And I mean, not to take us down a path of AI, right? But we know certainly it's out there. It's really, truly transforming care. But our ability to test it, to manage the change so I know how to interact with it, whether I'm clinical, whether I'm support, whether I'm in leadership, I think it will also provide us the same opportunity to see and understand what that looks like, because it will be significant change. I also think the other thing as we look to the future, we're super excited to maybe partner with some kind of big tech companies. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but they're exploring a lot of things too, whether it's Google, whether it's GE, whether it's, actually Hewlett-Packard came to us recently and talked about printers. It was really interesting to find out that we actually print more paper now than we did prior to the implementation of an electronic health record, right? So what's the why around that? And again, minor, but some testing that, could save time, could save dollars, that type of thing. So partnering in a different way with some of what I would consider the bigger tech companies, I think is also exciting.
And I think as we see technology continuing to change at the pace that it has, or faster, right, this smart room can also give us the opportunity to then get things in, test them more quickly, do some of that exploration, and determine, are we going to move forward with this or not, and driving some of that speed to value at a quicker pace, because that's going to be the expectation moving forward when you think about what our clinicians and mission partners are asking for, what our patients are asking for. They're looking for that technology. So how do we deploy that and get them to in them much quicker?
Is that kind of what excites the two of you most about this moving forward? Because we are blessed to be supported by a healthcare ministry that gets it, if you will. They understand the importance of this work.
Yes.
We're based in Peoria, Illinois. And so you have these big giants of everything coming here and finding the roads to Peoria and going, okay, you're doing a lot of cool things there and making this happen. Is that some of what excites you about this work you're currently doing and the work down the road?
Certainly, it is extremely exciting. I think the other thing yes, if you think about it from a national level, right, that is extremely exciting. And we hear a lot, we didn't know this existed in Peoria. Yep. So the physical place, the physical space itself, they didn't know, as well as some of the skill sets that we've been able to build. But I think the thing that is more exciting is we think about Destination OSF and how the culture of innovation has really, I would say, is very much ingrained within our ministry. And we have leaders every day coming and saying, this is a huge problem for us. Can you help us solve? I want to be the first to test it. Kind of the pick me attitude, which is really exciting, I think, for all of us to embrace the learning that occurs. But once the learning occurs, then how do we deploy it so that it's impactful for the rest of the ministry?
And I think also that space where we can bring in various technologies and really see how it's going to all interact together. Because it's one thing to bring in one technology, but then you really have to think through what's everything else we're bringing into that space and how are we really creating the best experience for our patients as well as our clinicians and mission partners. So I think that's going to be a really big part of it. And then also, it's a space also for our mission partners to come and be there, right? To think about, okay, let's be in this space. Let's talk about workflows. Let's talk about how you would do this. How would it impact you? How is it going to touch the patient? So just having that place where we can do that and maybe in a more informal way, hey, we're having a team meeting. Let's bring everybody in. Let's work in this space. So really excited about the what's possible.
Anything we haven't covered that you two think is important? Because we could sit here and talk for a very long time about, and I know you would tell me we can't talk about that yet, because I know those things are out there lurking, because we have so many, the coolness factor of some of the stuff we're doing that I can't wait to tell everybody about. But is there anything that we haven't touched on that we're in current state that you think is important for people to know?
From a current state perspective, and I would say it's not the most exciting thing, but I would say the question I'm asked most often outside of OSF is like, how are you getting these things done? And which is interesting because sometimes it feels a little second nature to us, even with the challenges, that can be in place. But I think we've been really fortunate to set up the right governance to be able to test. We know the continued advancement from an operations perspective and the transformation and all the great things that are happening day to day, day in and day out for our, those leading operations is super impactful. But we also know to stay ahead of that curve, we do have to be able to test, explore, learn, fail, and then determine kind of what the right path is. So I would say we're really fortunate to have the right governance with the right engaged executive leadership to really help us say, yes, this solves a huge problem for us. Please go test it. Tell us what you find. and reporting back to that, and really helps advance the implementation, if you will, of new ideas, as well as the culture. I feel like we've really, over the course of time, really built that culture so that mission partners feel very comfortable bringing forward their ideas. They understand they have a voice. They understand we want their ideas to be able to transform healthcare, and we can't do it in a building, right? It doesn't happen. It has to be a culture driving it.
And I think just to add on to that, it takes all of us, right? So we have a broad ecosystem within innovation, various skill sets, various disciplines, various experiences. So it really takes all of us coming together, but also the engagement of mission partners, leaders, clinicians to really make it successful. And we welcome when those ideas come forward to say, hey, we thought about doing it this way. Hey, I have an idea. Can we try something like this? Yes. Let's sit down. Let's figure out how we can test that or how we can leverage the right solution. What are other healthcare systems doing? But it really does take all of us in a culture, as Becky spoke to make this successful.
The sisters have been being agile for going on 150 years.
That's
and
exactly right.
They've always, sure, let's try it. You got to love that when you work at a place that says, sure, what's the worst? Go for it. Do
Yes.
it. Yep.
Yes.
And so we've had that support for a very long time.
We have.
Becky Buchen, Kelly George, thank you for the update on the exciting opportunities going on at OSF Innovation and the transformative care that is and work that is going on a daily basis. I'm sure we'll get you back here maybe about a year from now and see, we'll blow all of this up and go, here's where we are and we're going to do this, which is the fun stuff.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Shelli.
And thank you for joining us as well. And remember, you can catch all episodes of OSF Healthcare Accelerated at osfhealthcare.org/accelerated.